food program, and he's here to launch the HungerMap Live, which is WFP's global hunger monitoring system, which hopefully you'll be able to see on the screen in about 10, 9, 8, 7. We have liftoff. There we go. All right, Jean-Martin, your show.
Stefan, thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's nice to see some familiar faces. The reason I'm here is to present the HungerMap Live. I'm the Director of Food Security and Nutrition Analysis at the World Food Program, and I can tell you that food security is dynamic. I can tell you that hunger is a problem that can be predicted and that can be, where responses can be anticipated. That's why information systems and data platforms like the HungerMap Live are important. WFP's food security analysis capacity, it's about 300 specialists all over the world. They look at food consumption, market data, climatic data, food price information. They analyze conflicts. And that's what you have on the HungerMap Live. It's their work. And with the HungerMap Live, you, journalists, and also the general public, you see what I see as a director of food security analysis. This is WFP's new generation data and intelligence platform. I'd like to encourage you to pull up the HungerMap Live on your laptops or on your individual screen. So it's hungermap.wfp.org. Please check it out, hungermap.wfp.org. And you'll see the screen right here. What this visualization shows is trends in global hunger. Right now, 318 million people are facing acute hunger worldwide. The HungerMap Live gives you the history of it. You can click back to what it was like before COVID. You can see much lower number. We were at about 150 million. Things have gotten worse through time. The HungerMap Live gives you that history. What you also see in the HungerMap Live is where we're at today. You've got the high severity of food insecurity, the biggest number of people food insecure, visible right there on the map. With a red bullet, you see countries with the risk of famine. And these are countries where you've got populations facing a food catastrophe. In the case of Sudan, you've got Yemen, Gaza, Nigeria. You can see them on the map. There's also a forward-looking component. So by looking at the HungerMap Live, you see the countries that are hunger hotspots. This is a report that WFP and FAO publish every 6 months, outlining what countries are of highest concern in terms of food security going forward. Now, what we have on this data platform is also the impact of the crisis in the Middle East. You must have heard that WFP estimates that 45 million people might fall into acute hunger should the price of a barrel of oil stay above $100 through the end of June. That analysis is available here. It's a forward-looking analysis. This is exactly what the HungerMap Live was built to monitor. It's built to look at changing trends in the economy, changing trends in the climate, and see how that translates into increased vulnerability. So let me show you some of the layers we have that explain why people are food insecure. This is the climate layer. It picks out countries with insufficient rainfall or excessive rainfall. Right now, we've got the case of Somalia. It's a country which declared a drought emergency right there on the map, declared this drought emergency in November. If you're interested in the climate-related factors driving food insecurity ahead, there's an El Nino that's forecast for the latter part of this year. El Nino has dramatic impacts on food security, and you'll find more information on the outlook right on this map. If you look at the analysis here, you'll see the regions of the world that are most impacted by drought and by flooding, potentially, according to the forecast we have from the specialists. And we know that food security is very closely linked to economic factors. It's important to understand the economy, to understand food access, and why people aren't able to purchase or afford the food that they need to live a healthy life. This view shows food inflation throughout the world. As it says, 151 million people live in countries with high food inflation. That's food inflation that's above 15% a year. Unfortunately, the number of countries with food inflation above 15% is rising after having dropped in 2024 and 2025. It's rising now. Why? Because there's a conflict in the Middle East that's causing energy prices to rise. And in some fragile countries, we're seeing prices of food go up as a result. That's definitely the case in some of the countries you see on the Hunger Map Live. If you hover on these countries, and if you look at the Hunger Map Live on your laptop or on your phone, you'll see inflation picking up in Afghanistan and Somalia as well, because they have the drought, and they also have the impact of higher energy prices. And this is, again, the mechanism you can use to track how these crises are affecting the economies of the countries we work in. You also have a view with exchange rates that shows how exchange rates also interact with food security. Finally, there's a layer about hidden hunger. When we talk about hunger, it's important to assess micronutrient intake and malnutrition. The most vulnerable are always children under 5. And this view shows you how micronutrient intake varies per country. We're in Ethiopia right now, and you have a view of how that varies within Ethiopia, and you can even select different types of vitamins and minerals and assess the population's status here and understand how micronutrient deficiencies are driving hunger in that part of the world. This is something we're able to do thanks to the Gates Foundation. What we also have in the Hunger Map Live, and why we call it a next generation platform, is that there are AI analytics built into this platform. My colleagues in a select number of countries are able to access predictions of food security that are 30 to 90 days out. That enables them to plan, allocate resources in a way that's strategic at a time of constrained allocations to humanitarian assistance. Now, those estimates are not public. They're not public because we're trying to be as responsible as possible with our implementation of artificial intelligence. But what this is, the Hunger Map Live, it allows you, journalists, but also policymakers, students here in the room, to have your finger on the pulse of global food insecurity. That's what I had for you today. I'm ready for your questions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Edie?
Thank you very much on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. Can you tell us why the number of people suffering from acute hunger rose so dramatically from pre-COVID to today?
Thank you, Edith. The number rose dramatically as the result of the impact of the pandemic on supply chains and on livelihoods all over the world. We had an increase of about, the increase was 145 million in 2019 to almost 270 million just in 1 year. It was a step change. And what we know the pandemic lasted about a couple of years. Unfortunately, when we should have been coming back to normal, there was a major cost of living crisis driven by the conflict in Ukraine, which drove food prices and energy prices through the roof, creating food inflation that kept vulnerability levels quite high. And after 22, we had the conflict in Sudan that started, the conflict in Gaza, and all that has fueled continued food insecurity. And we've had this plateau of the number over 318 million. What has me quite worried specifically is the fact that the most severe form of food insecurity, so IPC5, the 5-point scale we use, with the 5th phase of it being phase 5 catastrophe, the number of people living under those conditions has increased from 85,000 in 2019 to 1.4 million last year. So that's 15x as a result of access challenges, funding constraints, and conflict. The number you have on the Hunger Map Live behind me, 318 million, 2/3 of the people in that number are in fragile contexts, are experiencing violence, or experiencing conflict. That's what's going on, and that's why these numbers remain so high.
Thank you. Namo?
Thank you very much. This is Namo Abdullah with Ruda Media Network. I have just a couple of questions. Syria, I see Syria is red on the map, and when I click on it, it says IPC phase 3. And the data apparently is recent. I just want to know, because you said we can predict the future of hunger in those countries. Where's Syria headed, for example? Because I don't know, the data seems old to me, because that's Syria and Iran. There is nothing about Iran. Why is Iran doing okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. If you look at the tab I just activated, which is the Hunger Hotspots, Syria is definitely there as a country of concern. And what I would encourage you to do is also look at the different layers in the Hunger Map Live. So we've got a climatic layer. Syria would have been concerned last year with a major drought. But also look at the economic layers, food prices, the macroeconomy, and those explain why some of these countries are facing increased food insecurity or an improvement. You do have countries that improve because, rainfall has been okay and food prices have moderated. Now, the numbers that you have in the on the landing page, which is the one I'll activate now. Here we are. What we share here are vetted numbers. It's important here to note that we will share with you numbers that are okay with the partners we work with. We don't do this work alone. We do it with many different partners, and that's what we display on this homepage. So these are numbers that you can be confident with, that you can use. This is information you can use as a journalist to advocate for or report on food security. The specific case of Iran, you will see that there is some economic information there. There's also the climatic information. There has not been a national food security assessment in Iran in a while, which is why it's not reported on.
Great. Yes, please, Chris.
Thank you so much for this briefing. Chris Reyes with Canadian Broadcasting. This is a remarkable data set that describes this problem. I'm wondering whether there's a way to track response, whether per country or per region, so that it's easier to identify where the gaps are in where the responses are being applied.
There's definitely a lot of other elements we can bring into the Hunger Map. I have colleagues who are calling for a solution map as well, in addition to the Hunger Map, and that's absolutely right. If we do our analysis well, we also point to the solutions that could be applied. Now, it's not all available here, but that's definitely a suggestion we could consider going forward. We do need to note, and the comment I'd like to make about this is that many of the humanitarian operations throughout the world are very much underfunded. It might be a question to a degree. Some operations are more underfunded than others, but overall the panorama is of a humanitarian landscape where funding has become quite scarce and where operations have retrenched.
Stefano?
Thank you very much for this briefing. I mean, you showed to us how the situation is very dire. Now, the fact that the organization at the moment is missing leadership. I mean, we are in a situation where, there will be, starting May, no leader in WFP, and it looks like Secretary General Guterres is not going to choose the new leader. So do you think that the job that your organization has to be confronted with is going to be even more difficult because this situation?
I'm happy to provide cover for Jean-Martin on this. There will be a process that will run its course. The head of WFP is appointed jointly by the Secretary General and the Director General of FAO. After the departure of the current executive director, Carl Scow, the executive, the deputy, excuse me, thank you, executive director of WFP, who I think has been extremely strong and traveling all around the world and knows the issues backwards and forwards, will be leading the organization while recruitment is ongoing. And I think we can expect a seamless transition and the continuation of WFP's fantastic work and very difficult work throughout the world. Evelyn, Evelyn, please.
Hi, Evelyn Leopold. We met an hour ago.
We did.
Yes, there was a big problem with cartels and on food in Mexico, have they appeared elsewhere to have cartel problems in other regions?
So the question is about cartels and their influence on food systems in Mexico. I have to say what we have tried to look at in that part of the world is the relationship between conflict and violence. And there is a relationship between conflict and food insecurity, excuse me. And we have established a relationship between the two phenomenon. Many of you might remember me from my time in Haiti, where organized violence and hunger really went hand in hand. It's not the same thing as the cartels you mentioned, but we need to understand that it's hunger doesn't only come out as a consequence of organized conflict that we see in the Middle East. There are also situations of violence that can undermine livelihoods, that can undermine farming, that can undermine the food systems that keep people fed, and that can undermine stability as well. We've been doing some work to try to understand that. More in ad hoc reports. You wouldn't find that data on the HungerMap Live necessarily, but keep an eye on on the research we put out, on the data we put out, and you might find answers to that question in the specific case of the Central American countries and the Caribbean.
Mona, and then we'll close it off.
Thank you very much for the briefing. I am Muna with Al Quds Al Arabi. I think the map shows about 15,000 people in Borno State entering phase 5, the same catastrophic level we see in Gaza. So we're wondering how does WFP measure or prevent the political focus on the Middle East from overcrowding or crowding out the resources needed for regions in Africa not getting the same attention? Thank you.
This is a great question, and this is exactly why we need a HungerMap Live. We need a place where all needs are made apparent. We need to be very transparent about the data that we have and what the needs are worldwide. So we have 318 million. On this map, you see the needs in the Middle East, but you also see needs in other parts of the world. I'm pleased that you mentioned Nigeria because it's a country that's received very limited attention. For the first time in 10 years, there is a population in Borno in IPC5 in the most extreme circumstances. This needs to be something that we prevent, that we work on, that we try to respond to. And unfortunately, it's also a very much underfunded operation for all humanitarian agencies and for WFP. So great question. This platform hopefully equips you as journalists to tell the story and serves as a reminder of the needs wherever they are in the world. There are needs in the Middle East, there are needs in Sub-Saharan Africa, in the Caribbean, in Asia, and they're all here quite transparently shared with you.
On that note, Jean-Martin, thank you very much, and thank you for
Stéphane.
that great project, and we hope to see you back here soon. Take care. Thank you.